Okay, now we're on Daf Nun Testament Beis Lahatir Chelba Hachikomer. Elu Hein Simoni Chaya Shechelba Mutter. How do I identify Chaya so we're allowed to eat the chelev? Kol Sheyesh La Kranayim Utlothim. Okay, I wanted to write this down on my page. I didn't get around to do it. Um, so the animal has horns. Now, there are many, many animals that have horns, like a goat, for example, has horns, and yet it's not a chaya, and we can't eat the chaylev. So Rabbi Dosa Omer Yeshla Kranayim, it has horns. Right? We know that it is a kosher animal. So any animal that has horns, by definition, is kosher. Now the question is, does it come into the category of chaya or of behema? Yeshla tlafayim tzorcha tolachza al karnayim. Right, the fact that it has split hooves does not necessarily mean that it has horns. You have to make sure it has horns. The keresh, we don't know exactly what a keresh is. Afal pisha ein lo ela keren achas mutter. So whatever it is, a keren achas, that this animal has like one horn in the middle of its head, and it's kosher. Not only is it kosher, but you're allowed to eat the chaylev because it's a chaya. Frekte Gemara Klolahu, are you going to tell me that any animal that has horns is a chay and you'll let eat the chaylev? Vare A's, what are you going to do with a goat? Yesh lo kornayim utlafayim v'chelbo asur. It's an animal, it's not a chaya. And the answer is kruchos be'inon. Here's where I don't know how much time do we have? You said 45 minutes. That gives us what, another 5 minutes? What?
Yeah, I have to go to shul like in 5 minutes.
Oh boy. So 5 minutes.
Sorry.
Yeah, no. There's something called kruchos, and then there's something called charukos. Then there's something called mefutsolos, and then there's something called chaduros. Chaduros. So basically, I mean, you have to use a whiteboard for this, but there are four different phenomenon of horns, and some behemos have certain similarities to the horns of chaya, and some do not. For example, the Gemara says that an A's, although the goat has horns, it's not a chaya because kruchos be'inan. Okay, it's very hard for me to figure out what kruchos means, but apparently the horn of the goat is smooth. It's not like layered. Very shor, the kruchos. Shor has a layered horn, and yet it's a behemah, chelboasa. Charukos be'inan. It's not enough that the horns are layered, but they also have to be grooved. Vare oz, charukos v'chelbo aser. Mefutzos be'inan. We need its branches out. Vare tzvi, the ein mefutzos v'chelbo mutter. Don't tell me that you have to have a branched horn because the tzvi, which is whatever the tzvi is, that's a big, gigantic machlokas here. Rashi seems to identify it as a deer, but that's probably not so. But anyway, and it's a chaya, it's a classic chaya, and yet it's not layered. Its horns are not layered. So now the Gemara has to add another criterion for chaya. Chaduros be'inon. It's got to be rounded. So I have a picture here of all these different types of deer and their beautiful horns. And, these are chayas. Hilka, the final bottom line, if the horns are branched out, lodina v'lodina, then we know it's a chaya. So apparently that t'nai, that sign that it is branched, is ipso facto proof positive that it is a chaya. So I guess we're saying that there's no other branched horn of a behemoth. That's what we're going to have to say. Even though a tzvi, we said, does not have a branched horn, but it has other simonim. So, for example, a tzvi will have all these other characteristics in their horns. They are layered, rounded, and grooved, although they're not necessarily. What did we say about the tzvi? It's not branched, right? So it's layered, rounded, and grooved. Again, you have to write this on the whiteboard, but it's not branched. V'hainu sfeika de Isa karkus. This is what we'll finish up with for because you have to go. And
Yeah.
there's some sort of an entity called Isa karkus. And the Isa karkus is a goat, and there's going to be a major machlokas in the Gemara about it, whether it's a behema or a chaya. And what's unique about this Isa karkos? It does not have that additional. It has horns that that just one second, that have two simon. They're grooved and rounded, right? Which according to one man the is enough to guarantee that it's a chaya, but it's not layered. And the question is, if it's not layered, whether or not those are horns of a chaya. He isa karkum dahavi bereish kalusa. This very unique kind of goat called the karkus goat. The okar milot sana de tarbamine. And after they shechted it, they took out this basket full of chalef, so much chalef. Rav Achoy also didn't want to eat it. Rav Shmuel Braid Rav Abba Ochal Mine and Karei Nafshe Mi Pri Pi Ish Tizba Bitno. Meaning, if I have a tradition, Mi Pi Ish, and it's kosher, it's a chaya, I should say, then I'm allowed to eat and my stomach will be filled with chalef. Sholchu misam. The message came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, Hilchos HaKavasi D'Shmuel Bereid Rabbi Abo, which means that we're allowed to eat the chalev of a karkus goat. Vizaru B'Rabbeinu Achai. But nevertheless, don't do it in front of Rav Achai, because Shemeir Eni Agolahu, because he is the eyes that this benotes. Out of kavod, out of respect, we should not eat from this goat, this karkov goat, in the presence of Rav Achoy. Now we go back to the Bryce. The keresh. What is a keresh? Afal pisha ein lo el keren achas mutter. Normally we say that a chaya has two horns. This chaya has one horn. Om Rabbi Yehuda keresh tavya debeiloi. This is a kind of a, let's say, something that belongs to the deer family. Maybe it's an antelope, and it comes from a place called Bei Eloi. Eloi literally means on top, the upper region. And Rashi identifies it as a wilderness and translated based on the French as Keresh is a Dain, Dain, which is basically Old French for a deer. Now, all varieties that we know of a deer have two horns. So this is very, very difficult. However, it's very interesting that Koheles Rabbah identifies the Keresh as a Tachash, which was a one-time creation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the sake of the skins of Tchashim that were used for the cover over the Mishkan. And it says in Koheles Rabbah that this is a large chaya with one horn in its forehead. God made it known to Moses, expressly giving it to him for the purpose of constructing the Mishkan, but then it was concealed. Now we get to Tigras. It's interesting that the word Tigras sounds like a tiger, but nevertheless, it's an aryeh. It's a lion. The Beiloi comes from that same wilderness up on top called Beiloi. And this was a gigantic lion. Omar of Kahana, this is mind-boggling. How large was this tigris? I don't know that lions and tigers come from the same family, but anyway. Tesha Amsa Havi Ben Una Una. Between its two ears, I guess during its width, it's 9 amos. What about its height? Omer of Yosef, Shitzar Amsa Havi Moshche the 16 amos is the height of this deer, which is called tigris. Okay, now we have an agadita. And this agadita will transmit the ongoing conversation between the Caesar of Rome and Rabbi Shua ben Chananya. Omole Kesar Rabbi Shua ben Chananya. The Kesar didn't believe in God. Elohechem, your God, Ka'aryeh Mesil. It's compared to a lion, Tsiv Aryeh Sha'ag Milo Yira, meaning that God is not afraid of a lion. My Rabusa. You're telling me in this pasuk, in Amos, that God is great because he's not afraid of a lion. Prussia Kotil Arya, a warrior could kill a lion. Amalei Lav Kahai Arya Michael. God is not controlling a regular lion that's killed by a warrior. This lion cannot be killed by a warrior. Be Arya de Beloim Masil. God is as great as this lion from Beiloi. Amalei, so the Caesar says to Rav Yeshua, over and over again in this whole story of they got it to the Caesar's going to say, show it to me. I want you to show me this lion of Beiloi. Amalei. Because God is compared to this lion. Show me the lion. Lo matzis, you can't even see it. Ibra, what are you talking about? Chazinale, show it to me, I'll see it. Boy Rachme, Rabbi Yeshua turned to the Eibishter and asked for divine help, and is Aker Miduke. And this lion, this tigris, came out of its place. Ki avi marchik arba meo parsi, when it was 400 parsos away, which is about 1,000 miles, roughly 1,600 kilometers. Nihem, it let out a roar, chad kol, just one roar. Afilu kol ma'abrasa v'shura de Romi nofa. All the pregnant women, that's muberes, ma'abrata, miscarried. The walls of Rome collapsed. When it got 300 parts, it gets 100 parts closer, lets out another roar. Nosser koche v'shine de gavri. The men's teeth fell out. V'afhu nofal mikursai lara, and Caesar himself fell to the ground from his throne. Amalei, he said to Rabbi Shua, okay. I admit. B'matuna minach, I pray to you. Boy rachmi alei, please pray to your God. To put this tigris back in its place. I want to see your God. So Rabbi Yeshua says, you can't see God. God is not visible. He's not physical. He's not corporeal. But the Caesar apparently denied it, and he refused to accept what Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya said, Ibra. And therefore he claimed, Chazinole. I will behold him. Just show him to me. Ozil ukma b'hadiyoma b'tkufas Tammuz. He set up the Caesar against the sun in the period of the highest heat of the sun, in the summertime. Amalei stakelbe, gaze upon the sun. Amalei lo matzina, I can't gaze upon the sun. Amalei, Yeshua says, kal v'chomer. Yomach techad mishamshe de kame kudushbicho. The sun, which just is one of the many, many servants that stand in front of the Holy One, blessed he, Amr, and yet you admit, lo matzino l'stakule be, I can't look at him, can't gaze at him. Ishchino lo kolshken, how much more so the divine presence. He can't gaze upon the sun that's a physical entity. Surely you cannot see God who's a metaphysical entity. And this is where we'll stop for today.